So the genesis I shared with you about the design, basically we decided on 3 key elements to the book. And this is being given to you as a resource. I think there's a lot in here that you might be able to use directly with students as you develop an enterprise. You can choose to or choose not to. We had 3 foundational elements that you'll see in the first 3 chapters of the book. We took a look at what generativity is and the history of it, so that it wouldn't be something that people go, oh, you're just kind of pulling that out of your ear, you're making that up. There's a real lineage to the history of generativity, and we'll talk more specifically about that in a minute. The second foundational element is what's called living systems theory. Living systems basically speak to the point that everything that's going on is influenced by everything else that's going on. Everything is connected somehow, whether you realize it or not. So when we tend to function as leaders and not recognize the potential link points or touch points or energy points or whatever that are out there in existence all the time, in motion, visible and invisible. That's key. Visible and invisible. Sometimes things are happening and we don't even realize it, but they are. And we don't realize that they just happened until later. We went, oh, I didn't know that was happening over there. And yet it had an influence on what we were doing, we just didn't know. Okay? And then the third element was looking at leadership development, because this is a book for developing leaders and shaping leaders. We took a look at this notion of brain research, informing the process of learning. If I'm an instructional leader for a school, I find that it can be pretty important to better understand what's going on in the process of learning. How does that work? How does it function? So we said, you know, if we could introduce these 3 key chunks, big chunks, to help existing school leaders or newly developing school leaders, help them understand the relationship between these three things, and help them develop that. My gosh, we could really start to change perhaps how some of these schools are run. And not just schools, because we wrote the book also for any organization. Really, any organization. We then took it as, okay, what about some personal reflections around that stuff? And you'll see in the second section of the book, we talk about personal reflections. And then are there tools and processes that we might be able to offer up that are, some are ours, some I created personally, some we worked on collaboratively, some are borrowed from others that might in fact be usable open source, meaning anything that's in that book you're welcome to use. You don't need to ask us for permission to copy the pages. You'll see in the back of the book some of the charts and things. If you want to copy them and make transparencies and rock with them, they're yours to use. We don't care. Don't worry about getting slowed down by us and protocols of the past. Use it if you want. Okay? So that's how we shape the book. The premise of the book is that complex problems, and the perspective we came from, complex problems plaguing American education could get unstuck. We think a lot of schools are flat out stuck. They don't know where to turn, what to do, how to get out of where they are. They're stuck, simply put. So if we can, the complex problems plaguing schools can get unstuck if our education leaders learn and apply the characteristics and behaviors that have proven effective in solving complex, multi-stakeholder problems within organizations and communities. Most are multi-stakeholder. This is very important. When we're dealing with schools, there are, as we talked about even in the CNN piece with Jason, look at the stakeholders that were involved in that one decision. Multi-stakeholders. Now, if I'm intentionally coming forward and saying, our school isn't going anywhere, we aren't showing any signs of success, we are sort of in a status quo, we're locked